Module PhLb, Lecture 2, Domestic Waste. In a recent class discussion, one of our students referenced the achievement of New York University environmental science student Lauren Singer, who CNN celebrated in their Going Green feature as one of our planet's green champions. Her claim to fame was reducing the amount of packaging that she brought home over 4 years so that she could fit each year's worth in one mason jar. Now that is dedication. So much of our so-called domestic waste is unnecessary. Bulk shopping has existed since time immemorial, and here in Florida, outlets like Bulk Nation, which has branches in Brandon, Largo, and Lakewood in our region, cater to people who want to eliminate much single-use plastic and other packaging. In Europe, of course, fresh fruit and vegetables are displayed and purchased without packaging. Shoppers have been using their own reusable shopping bags for decades, and plastic or paper bags in the stores are available at a price that reflects the social and environmental costs they might cause, and so disincentivize use. Oh, and stores like Aldi have unpackaging stations before you leave the store, large tables next to recycling bins where you remove as much packaging as you can before leaving and make it the store's responsibility to get the materials back into the supply chain. On every street corner, there are specific color-coded recycle bins, and it's a point of pride among Europeans to do as much pre-cleaning and sorting as possible. And because many European countries, Germany and Denmark and Sweden in particular, have such a robust infrastructure of municipal and rural biodigesters and commercial composting operations to complement their culturally expected backyard composting and their massive wind turbine and solar electric and solar thermal infrastructures, there's little organic waste to speak of. They have green bins for that which decomposes from the home or garden or street, and so their other garbage isn't contaminated and therefore not refused by recycling centers. When I visited Manila in the Philippines back in 2011, I saw something that convinced me that many so-called developing countries were already outstripping the Northwest European hegemonic cultures when it came to problem solving. I decided to take a public transit one day out to the largest landfill in the world, the so-called Smoky Mountain landfill, several hours away from the central city. There I was astounded to learn that not only were the Filipinos implementing a new biogas project for electricity generation from landfill gas and training the local garbage picker communities to source separate to increase efficiency, but the garbage trucks arriving there every few minutes all had massive posters on their sides saying, "If you haven't separated, we won't pick up your trash." It was a bold statement by the municipality, backed by the kind of disciplinary action that we should all be subject to. You made your own mess. If you aren't responsible enough to help clean things, then go ahead and wallow in it. San Francisco is one of the few American cities I've spent time in that does the same thing. Last year, when my wife and I arrived for the annual Google Science Fair that I've always been one of the judges for, we noticed immediately that the airport had special bins for organics and other bins for clean recyclables. The restaurants and fast food courts didn't have any single-use plastics. All of our packaging was compostable. They even had attendants at the recycling bins directing patrons where and how to properly place, not dispose of, their residuals. The attendants we talked to were knowledgeable and friendly, providing more of a free education than any kind of admonition. In the city, outside my cousin's apartment, we found that those families that didn't carefully clean and sort their garbage and properly put them in the right place, including the green bin for all the organics, would come outside to find a colorful and pleasantly worded brochure explaining where things should have gone and warning them that next time their garbage would simply be left behind until they got into compliance. It was such a contrast to what we'd seen in all the other US airports and cities that we'd been flying into and out of. And when I talked to restaurant vendors and cleaning staff, and to my cousin and her neighbors, and to city sanitation workers, they all had nothing but positive things to say. Why should the carelessness and irresponsibility of the so-called consumer be rewarded or supported or aided and abetted? Just what kind of perverse incentive program have we been running all these years? As I've mentioned in class before, there actually are garbage mafias in most cities who make most of their money through the increasing value of ever-decreasing or scarce land for landfill. It's really about land speculation and what has been a fairly inelastic market using the classic scarcity model. As long as people think goods turn into bads that need disposal and the spaces available for disposal are running out, those who control the flow of those bads from cradle to grave will profit handsomely. Naples, Italy, which has been lurching from garbage crisis to crisis for decades, is a classic example, with the Camorra Mafia gang controlling the garbage market. As one article points out, quote, the Camorra isn't actually that interested in household waste, but it is interested in controlling the waste cycle, controlling the dumps. Camorra gangs have also bought land at knockdown prices from intimidated small landowners and sold it at a huge profit to companies involved in stocking bales of waste. End quote. What are you going to do about it? So now this module of our class is concerned with the anthropology of waste as it concerns domestic wastes, the waste you, no longer me so much, produce at home, while the next module unpacks the anthropology of industrial wastes. It would be nice if they were so evenly divided, but alas, the world is far more complex than that. As the Naples case shows, mixing waste streams, particularly those that are problematic, dangerous, toxic, is good business for those charging a premium for diminishing landfill space or dump and destroy operations that nobody wants in their backyard. Quote, the Camorra filled the dumps not just with household trash, but also with industrial waste trucked in from around Italy. This traffic remains one of organized crime's most lucrative activities, rivaling and possibly exceeding narcotics for profitability, end quote, says the article. Quote, the gangsters still make fortunes in waste transport, and as they no longer run the dumps by dumping and burning toxic refuse in the countryside, they make their money, which is a major source of pollution blamed for higher than normal rates of certain cancers in the region, end quote. If our domestic consumption residuals were properly cleaned and sorted, they would be profitably collected and brought to remanufacture centers as valuable feedstock. Without the organic residues on them, most of them wouldn't create a hazard and could sit indefinitely in locations where they could be brought back into an industrial ecology, and it's unlikely anybody would allow them to get mixed in with industrial waste. The volume reductions for unpleasant household trash would make it obvious when unscrupulous players were trying to smuggle in hazardous industrial waste.